He had the kind of money that made people forget their morals, the kind of charm that could fill boardrooms with applause but left his house in silence, and the kind of past that no private jet could outrun. Tyrell Donovan was a billionaire in every way that mattered to the world, except the ways that mattered to him. He had climbed every mountain Wall Street threw in his way, built an empire of steel and skyline. But no one called him Dad when he walked through the door, because the woman who once loved him the deepest had left taking with her a truth that would shatter everything he thought he knew. But what happens when the past shows up with your eyes and your last name? When the woman you hurt most returns not for revenge, but for the children you never knew existed, would you fight to fix what you broke, or walk away like before? This is not just the story of a billionaire. It's the story of a man learning too late that some legacies aren't built in boardrooms. And if you've ever loved someone who forgot your worth or walked away from something you weren't ready to lose, then stay with me, because Tyrell's story might just be your story too. Tyrell didn't believe in signs, but that morning at JFK, something in the air felt off. Maybe it was the weight of another empty business trip, or maybe it was the ache he never quite named, the one that showed up when the cameras left and the silence returned. He was reaching for his coffee when he saw them. A woman struggling to keep two energetic boys from running toward the boarding gate. She looked tired, determined, familiar, too familiar, and then it hit him. Her name, Naomi, landed in his chest like a punch he didn't see coming. She hadn't changed much. Still had that quiet fire in her eyes, the kind that burned slow and deep. But what shook him wasn't just seeing her. It was seeing himself in the faces of the twin boys clinging to her coat. Same brown skin, same storm gray eyes, same dimpled smirk that had once melted Naomi's pride. For a moment the airport faded. It was just him, staring at a truth 5 years too late. Those were his sons. He didn't need a DNA test. He needed answers. Why didn't she tell him? Why had she vanished from his life and taken his blood with her? Naomi's expression said everything. Surprise, guilt, then that wall she always put up when the world tried to touch what she loved. They don't know who you are? She said, her voice steady, but her hands trembled. And I didn't come here for you. Tyrell felt his world tilt. He had built an empire so no one could ever take something from him again. And yet here he was, watching the only legacy that truly mattered walk away on two little legs. But what do you do? When the love of your life shows up with children who don't even know your name, you chase the truth. And in Tyrell's case, it led to a war he never expected. Because the next battle wouldn't be about real estate or reputation. It would be about family and forgiveness. If you've ever felt the sting of unfinished love, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. This story is just beginning. Tyrell had barely returned to New York when the storm came knocking. Not from the press, not from investors, from the woman who gave him life but never let him live it freely. Evelyn Donovan, matriarch of the Donovan name, keeper of image order and generational wealth. She didn't knock when she entered his penthouse. She never did. I heard Naomi's back, she said, cold as crystal stemware. And with children. Her voice curled around the word like it was something filthy. Tyrell didn't answer right away. He'd spent years trying to earn her approval through deals, degrees, and discipline. But now, he was a man with his own truth. A father with blood ties that didn't need boardroom blessings. They're mine, Ma. They're bastards, she snapped. And she's a mistake you should have buried, not resurrected. The air cracked between them. To Evelyn, legacy meant control, preserving a spotless name, a curated lineage. But to Tyrell, it had started to mean something different. Two boys who laughed like him, drew robots on napkins like he used to, and looked at Naomi like she was the whole sky. He stood tall. They're my sons, and I won't hide them. Evelyn's face hardened. Then don't expect this family, this empire, to stand behind your shame. That was the moment Tyrell realized he could either protect a last name carved in marble, or fight for the kind of love that lives in bedtime stories, scraped knees, and second chances. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was the right one. Because sometimes family isn't who raised you, it's who shows up when your world falls apart. And while Tyrell was preparing to lose the comfort of a name, he had no idea the war ahead would come from more than just bloodlines, because someone else was watching, plotting, waiting, not for love, not for justice, but for power. The first time Tyrell stood outside Naomi's door in Queens, he wasn't holding flowers. He was holding his breath, because no amount of money could buy back the 5 years he'd missed. No corporate victory could prepare him to look into the eyes of two boys and say, "I'm your father." The door opened slowly. Mike and Malik stood behind their mother, peeking out like curious shadows. They didn't flinch. They didn't run, but they didn't recognize him either. And that hurt more than he expected. "Hi," he said, crouching to their eye level. "I'm a friend of your mom's." It was a start. The next few days were awkward. Tyrell, who could negotiate billion-dollar mergers before lunch, struggled to open a juice box without spilling it. He forgot how to tie tiny sneakers, burned pancakes, lost at Uno repeatedly. But something strange began to happen. Mike started saving him a seat at dinner. Malik asked if Tyrell could help with his science project. And one night, as they sat on the floor watching cartoons, Malik leaned into his side and whispered, "You smell like me." Tyrell laughed, then cried when no one was looking. Because that moment, simple as it was, meant more than any stock market win. He was slowly becoming a father, not in name, but in presence. In bedtime stories he read off his phone. In Saturday park runs where he forgot how out of shape he was. In questions like, "Why don't you live with us?" and answers like, "I'm trying, buddy. I really am." But just as things were starting to feel like family, a shadow loomed, legal cold and calculated. Because someone else had been watching Naomi too. Someone who saw her not as a mother, but as leverage. And the next move would drag them all into court. Tyrell was learning how to be a father. But the system, it was about to test whether he even had the right to try. Tyrell thought rebuilding his family would be the hardest thing he'd ever do. He was wrong. Because just as trust began to bloom, subpoenas arrived. Not from Naomi, but from someone far more dangerous in a suit. Garrett Miles, Tyrell's former protege, now a corporate vulture dressed in designer revenge. Garrett had been watching, waiting, and when whispers spread that Tyrell had secret children with a woman from the past, he moved fast, filed a petition challenging the legitimacy of Tyrell's paternity, claimed Naomi forged DNA, alleged fraud, and worst of all, convinced the board to freeze Tyrell's executive power until further review. Tyrell wasn't just fighting for his kids anymore. He was fighting for his name. The tabloids ran with it. Billionaire's secret family scandal. Donovan dynasty, cracks heirs, or hoax. Naomi got hate mail. The boys were pulled out of school after kids mocked their last name. Evelyn said nothing, but her silence roared with judgment. In court, Garrett's lawyers came prepared. Expensive, ruthless. They painted Tyrell as irresponsible, Naomi as manipulative, and the twins as inconvenient liabilities. But Tyrell stood his ground. He brought every document, every photo, testified to every missed birthday, every late-night visit, every scraped knee he now knew he should have kissed. And when the judge asked if he loved those boys even before knowing they were his, he answered no. "I loved them the moment I saw her protect them, because I knew I should have been there to do it instead." The courtroom fell quiet. It wasn't a legal mic drop. It was a father finally stepping into the pain he'd once caused. But court rulings take time, and so does healing. And as Tyrell fought for what mattered, Naomi had a decision of her own to make. Not just about the boys, but about her heart. Because sometimes the scars left behind by love take more than apology to mend. Have you ever had to fight for your truth, even when the world didn't believe you? Drop a comment and share your story. We read every word. And if this moment hit you, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Evelyn Donovan had ruled her world with elegance and fear. She didn't cry. She corrected. Didn't apologize. She outlasted. And for most of Tyrell's life, her voice was law. So when Naomi returned, Evelyn built walls. Not out of jealousy, but out of fear that this woman, this ghost from the past, would unravel the legacy she spent decades polishing. But then, she saw something she hadn't expected. She saw Naomi hold Malik while he slept through a nightmare. She saw Mike run to her arms after a scraped knee. She saw a mother doing the one thing Evelyn never truly learned to do: love without conditions. One morning, Evelyn showed up at Naomi's door unannounced, uninvited, and uncharacteristically soft. "I'm not here to scold you," she said. "I'm here because I've been wrong, and I've been silent long enough." Naomi stood frozen. This was the same woman who once called her a seasonal distraction. But Evelyn wasn't here to rewrite the past. She was here to fight for the future. "Those boys," she whispered, "carry more than Tyrell's eyes. They carry our blood, and I won't let anyone erase them." In the days that followed, Evelyn did what no one saw coming. She publicly endorsed Tyrell's paternity, held Naomi's hand outside the courthouse, sat front row at the boys' school assembly, and when a reporter asked why now, she simply said, "Because no name is more important than family, and no legacy is real if it hides its truest roots." The shift was seismic. Shareholders wavered, the press pivoted, and Garrett, he lost the very leverage he thought would destroy Tyrell. But while the outside world began to heal, inside Naomi's heart, the crack still whispered doubt. Could she really open the door again to a man who once left her carrying not just heartbreak, but 2 lives inside her? She didn't need his money. She needed his consistency. Tyrell Donovan once thought power lived in skyscrapers, in corner offices, in private jets and quarterly earnings. But power looks different when you're holding your son's hand, walking across warm sand, and hearing him ask, "Can we stay here forever, Daddy?" It wasn't a dramatic exit. No slamming doors, no public meltdown. Just a signature. Tyrell signed away controlling shares of Donovan Enterprises, left the boardroom battles to men who cared more about numbers than names, and moved his life, his real life, to a quiet coastal town in Malibu. He bought a modest home. Nothing flashy. Just enough space for Nerf gun wars, burnt waffles, and sleepy Sunday cartoons. Enough room for Naomi to breathe, for the boys to laugh, for him to finally show up and stay. He didn't leave behind his ambition, he just redefined it. Tyrell launched a local foundation, one that built housing for single mothers, helped Black-owned small businesses, and offered legal aid for custody battles just like his. He didn't need press, he needed purpose. And day by day, Naomi saw the difference. He wasn't showing up with gifts anymore. He was showing up with presence. No grand gestures. Just a man who sat through dentist appointments, who learned how to braid hair on a doll just to help his sons win a bet, who tucked them in, even when they were already asleep. And still he waited, because Naomi hadn't said yes. Not yet. She watched him closely, studied the gaps between the "I'm sorry" and the "I'm here." And one evening, as they watched the sunset from their porch, she said the words he'd hoped for, but never rushed. "You're not who you used to be." He looked at her quietly. "And I'm not who I was, either," she continued. "But maybe we can start again. From here, from now." That night something shifted. Not just between them, but around them. Because when a woman learns to trust again, that's when the real healing begins. It was a small wedding. No ballroom, no orchestra, no billionaire guest list. Just a beach, 4 chairs, 2 boys in matching suits throwing rose petals like it was a game they were born to win. Naomi wore yellow, not white, because she wasn't starting over. She was continuing on her terms. Tyrell waited barefoot at the altar, not out of rebellion, but reverence. Because this wasn't about tradition. This was about intention. "I don't want to promise you forever," he said, voice steady. "I want to promise you every day I wake up, I'll show up. For you. For them. For us." Naomi smiled, and for the first time in years, her smile didn't carry defense, only decision. Their vows weren't poetic, they were personal, built not on dreams, but on apologies, second chances, and hard-earned trust. Mike and Malik held their hands at the end, one on each side, a new kind of unity. No lawyers, no lawsuits, just laughter. And as the sun dipped into the ocean, Evelyn stepped forward, holding a photo frame. Inside was a picture from decades ago. Tyrell as a child sitting on his father's lap. "I want this," she whispered, placing it in Naomi's hands to be passed on to them someday, from both of you. Healing rarely comes loud. It comes soft, slow, in small moments that used to hurt becoming spaces that now hold love. This wasn't just Tyrell's redemption, it was Naomi's recognition. Not as the woman he lost, but as the woman he finally saw. Because sometimes love doesn't return in grand gestures. It returns when a man chooses family over ego. When a mother lets herself be held after holding everyone else for too long. When two broken hearts stop surviving and start belonging. And if you've ever loved quietly, forgiven slowly, or rebuilt bravely, then you know. The most powerful legacy isn't built in boardrooms, it's built at home, with people who see you and still choose you. If this story reminded you that healing is possible no matter how long it takes, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. And if you believe in love that chooses you back, subscribe. We've got more stories that speak right to your heart.